In section 10.4, it's split up into two different parts, not just my video parts, but there are two different types of situations where you're involving monthly payments. And so the idea is we're going to look at each kind of subset of those monthly payment plans. So the first one would be a fixed installment. So this is a fixed amount over a set period of months. Examples of fixed installments are things like tuition, car payments, and furniture if you buy it from a store with store credit. So again, like tuition, I attended TWU in the spring of 2020, and I set up a monthly payment plan to pay my tuition. And so it was a set amount of cost or fixed amount that I needed to pay, and I paid it over the course of several months. Same thing with cars. You get a 5-year loan for a car. You pay that over a set period of time, and it's a fixed amount with its interest. Okay? Open installment or open-ended installments are when you do not have to pay a fixed amount each month, and you can choose a variable amount to pay, and there's not a set deadline by which you need to pay off the debt. So let's write that down. The most popular example of open-ended installments are credit cards. You can make a variable payment each month. You get to choose how much you pay. Now, of course, a credit card will require a minimum payment. If you do not meet the minimum payment, then you could incur late fees and other types of fees. But in general, you can make a variable payment on your credit card each month, and there's no fixed term by which you need to pay the entire thing off. That's kind of the part about credit cards that can get dangerous, because if you miss your payment, minimum payment, it affects your credit negatively, and that could impact you later in life with other situations. So let's look at some vocabulary that will show up in this section. The first one we have is APR. That's an abbreviation for annual percentage rate. Okay. We have finance charge, which is going to be the interest plus fees. So in the example of credit cards, it's every month you have to pay part of your balance plus interest and any fees that might come along with that card. And then we also have the total installment price, which is the sum of the monthly payments plus the down payment. So, for example, if you're buying a car, let's say you're buying a car for $10,000 and you put $2,000 down, okay? The total cost of the car is going to be what you put down initially, the $2,000, plus the $8,000 you still owe, plus the interest and any fees on the $8,000 that remains, okay? The monthly payment includes your principal plus your interest. We are going to look at the monthly payment formula. So what we want to do is we want to look at the formula and determine what each piece means and what each piece represents. So here, the payment for each month, which I'm going to abbreviate as PMT or payment, will equal the principal times the rate divided by N, and when we were looking at compounding interest, N was the number of times the interest was compounded. However, in this formula, N represents the number of payments in a year. But we are specifically looking at monthly payments, so in our situation, N is going to equal 12. That entire thing, principal times the rate divided by N, is going to be divided by, and be very careful with this, 1 minus the quantity 1 plus R divided by N, raised, that quantity raised to the negative NT power. So there's a couple things I want us to know. First, I've already put it in a red cloud. Don't round early on these problems. If you round early, your answer will be off, and it will count you off. You will round at the very end. okay? Which means you might have to use your calculator to store answers or partial answers, or you might just have to be very careful in how you type this in your scientific calculator. The other thing I want you to note is that on your scientific calculator, this button, it's on the very bottom row, represents that negative sign. So the negative sign that I'm highlighting in blue, when you put that in your calculator, that comes from this button, which is different from the operation sign. The operation sign is one of the side buttons on the right for subtraction, and that's just a minus sign. But the negative sign is that sign in the parentheses. They do that so you can know that it's treated differently than a subtraction sign. Also, when you raise something to a negative power, you're going to want to make sure that when you raise it, you start your part in parentheses. So like, let's say I had 1% to the 0.1 for 10% over 12 raised to the negative 12 times 5 for a 5-year loan. Now let's say it was 100, 0.1 over 12. Let's say, okay, so essentially I'm making up an example right now. If I had a $100 principal that I paid 10% interest on over, let's say a 5-year period, so that's going to be 12 times 5 is 60. When I type this part in my calculator, I want to make sure that I use parentheses around the entire quantity. I might also put parentheses around this r divided by n, and I would want to put parentheses around this. So I would use the caret of n and then say negative 12 times 5 as my exponent. Okay? If you don't put parentheses around it, it's just going to think that it's to the negative 12th power, and then it's going to multiply whatever you have there by 5. When you calculate this with your calculator, you can do it piece by piece. But remember, please do not round until the final answers. So if you end up getting a response that's like in the numerator, you do, let's say you get 116.232323232323, and it repeats. When you're solving that, make sure you include multiple, all the decimal places that you are provided. So let's look at an example where we're going to use that monthly payment formula. Suppose we borrow $20,000 for 6 years at 7% interest. So we have our principal is $20,000, the time is 6 years, we have 7% interest, which is our rate, and we're trying to figure out what our monthly payments are. So I'm going to erase the question because we know we're looking for our monthly payments. And I'm going to rewrite my monthly payment formula. We substitute in the values from the problem. We'll substitute 20,000 for the principal, 6 for time. The rate we're going to write as a decimal, which is 0.07. And we know, as we mentioned, because we're looking at monthly payments, that our n is 12. Here is the formula written out with all the substitutions made. Notice there are no more variables on this side. And what we're going to do, I'm going to start by just saying, okay, well, we know that 12 times 6 is 72. So when I substitute this into my calculator, or write this in my calculator, I'm not going to do the 12 times 6. I already can do that in my head and write it as negative 72. So I'm going to do that now. That might save me a little bit of hassle when trying to figure this all out. But I'm going to do it piece by piece. I'm going to do 20,000 times the quotient between the rate and the number of payments per year. And then I'm going to solve for what the denominator is, which I'll circle in blue. And then I'll divide my numerator divided by my denominator. So I've shown the work for calculating the numerator, and then also for calculating the denominator. and then did the numerator, which was 116.66666 repeating, divided by the denominator, which is 0.342150, and we get our answer to be the monthly payment equals $340.98. We're going to round to the nearest cent, which is our hundredths place. Let me underline that in red. We round down to 98 cents because the following digit to the right is 4 or less. So our monthly payment for this loan would be $340.98. Now we're going to answer the question, how much do you pay over the course of the loan? So if you think about it, if it's a 6-year loan and there are 12 months per year, the course of the loan or the term of the loan is over 72 months. So we take that 72, or the amount of payments that will be made, and we multiply it by the amount you pay each payment, which was $340.98. And that will tell you the total amount that you pay over the course of the loan. To find how much interest we pay, we would take the total amount that we end up paying, $24,550.56 from the previous question, and then we would subtract the principal of the loan, which is $20,000, which gives us that our interest that we pay is $4,550.56. That's almost a quarter of the amount of the entire loan. So we're going to look at a couple more examples with different lengths of terms and see what happens. Take a few moments to answer the same questions, checking with 5 years, and then a length of term being 4 years. Determine how much the monthly payment would be and how much interest will be paid. You may see a pattern here. If you notice, our principal stayed the same. It was $20,000. Our interest rate was 7% for each of these situations. But if you look at it, if I have a term of a loan that is longer, my monthly payments are smaller because I get to pay the same amount over a longer period of time, so I get to pay less at each monthly payment, but I end up paying more interest overall. So we can state that in general, if the principal, the number of times it's compounded a year, and the interest rate are the same, a longer term loan will have lower monthly payments. We saw that here because the longer term allows you to pay it over a longer period of time, so the total amount you end up paying gets divided over more monthly payments, and so therefore you have less to pay each month. So therefore this is true. So if you want a lower monthly payment, you want to get a longer loan. And this is also true in general. If the principal, the number of times compounded a year, and the interest rate are the same, a shorter term loan has less total interest overall. Okay, we saw that here. If I pay my loan off more quickly or have a shorter term loan, then I end up paying less interest overall. Let's take a second to consider two different loans. One is a $100,000 loan at 7% interest for 15 years. The second one, I forgot the word interest, sorry. The second one is a $100,000 loan at 7% interest for 30 years. So which one of these would have a lower monthly payment? Well, the one that has a lower monthly payment will be the longer term loan. So this one would have the lower monthly payment. Which one would have less total interest to be paid overall? That is going to be your shorter term loan. So this one will have less interest paid. So you really have to analyze and think about what situation do you want to be in. Do you want to have a lower monthly payment and end up paying more in the long run because that's what you can afford? Or do you want to pay it off more quickly and have a shorter term loan so that you pay less interest overall and save money in the end? So trust me, I'm not one to judge here. People's monies and their money situation is between you and your pocketbook. But I do want to state that I hope that when you consider the decisions you make financially, that you're thinking about the long term and what happens if you take out a loan that's a longer loan versus a shorter loan, and you make the best decisions for you. And the best way to do that is to be informed. So there are several more examples that you can work through, and there's a lot on the homework you can go through. But this is part 1 of our 10.4 section, looking at monthly payments with fixed installments. And the next one we're going to look at is part 2, which talks about credit cards. And then after that, we'll look at mortgages. So, thank you. Bye.